Before we begin, imagine one frightened alien witness being pulled from a burning archive. The Council says she has no value. Earth says that is exactly why she must be protected. This is not a story about winning a war. It is about one human refusing to trade a living voice for political peace. And what happens when the smallest witness carries the truth an empire tried to bury. Earth was ordered to abandon one alien witness. Marcus Hale was checking a shipment of emergency medicine when the first alert reached the Earth rescue ship. The crates were strapped in rows along the cargo bay of the Resolve, each one marked for a different colony on the outer edge of Council space. Fever suppressors, burn gel, blood stabilizers, filters for water systems that had not been repaired in years. None of it looked glamorous. None of it looked like diplomacy. But Marcus had learned that most interstellar crises began with ordinary supplies that failed to arrive on time. He was Earth's emergency protection envoy for the border regions under Galactic Council oversight. His official job sounded simple in a briefing document. When civilians were trapped between Council law and local disaster, Marcus decided whether Earth had the right to help. In practice, that meant he was often the first human standing in front of a larger power and saying no. Captain Jonah Reed came through the cargo bay door with his jaw tight and his tablet already open. "We just got a distress burst from the Meridian archive," Reed said. Marcus looked up from the cargo seal. The record station? Neutral registry station. Council adjacent, but not Council-owned. At least, not officially. Reed turned the tablet so Marcus could see the broken signal map. The burst lasted 8 seconds. Fire, structural failure, possible survivors. Then silence. The Meridian Archive sat in a narrow stretch of border space where old treaties, colony claims, witness records, and disaster reports were stored outside the direct control of any single species. It was supposed to be boring. That was why people trusted it. Marcus studied the map. The station was less than one jump away, close enough for Earth to answer before most. Council patrols could reroute. Any Council response? Marcus asked. None on open channels. That detail made the cargo bay feel colder. The Galactic Council never ignored a record station. Not because it loved truth, but because records were power. If a witness name, a resource claim, or a disaster report disappeared, someone benefited. Someone always benefited. Marcus closed the cargo manifest. Divert the Resolve. Reed did not ask for confirmation. Already turning. The ship dropped from its supply course and jumped toward Meridian within minutes. Marcus used the time to contact Earth Border Relief and file a narrow rescue notice. He did not request permission. In a civilian distress window, Earth law allowed action first and explanation later. That rule had saved lives. It had also made Earth unpopular. When the Resolve broke out of jump, the Meridian Archive was burning in pieces. The station drifted against a field of pale debris. Its outer ring split open like a cracked wheel. Emergency lights blinked through smoke and frozen vapor. Sections of the hull had sealed themselves, but others were venting slowly into space. A cluster of automated beacons flickered without sending any organized message. Reed stood at the forward console. No active Council ships in the immediate zone. That makes no sense, Marcus said. No, it does not. The nearest Council patrol station was closer than Earth. Either the Council had not received the distress burst, or it had received it and decided not to move. Marcus did not like either answer. Reed deployed rescue drones while 2 human teams crossed through a pressurized docking tube. Marcus went with the second team. His protection authority only mattered if there was someone alive to protect. The inside of Meridian smelled of melted insulation, coolant, and hot metal. Emergency foam clung to the walls. Storage panels had buckled outward. The main corridors were too damaged to trust, so the team moved through a service spine lined with old data conduits. Every few meters, Marcus saw the same thing on the walls. Not random damage. Cuts. Someone had not only blown the station. Someone had carved paths through its memory. A rescue tech named Alvarez found the first body near a sealed door. Then another behind a collapsed rack. Their uniforms were gray archive coveralls, not military gear. Clerks, technicians, record handlers, people who had gone to work expecting to catalog the past and had died because someone feared what the past contained. Reed's voice came through Marcus's earpiece. We have heat in Auxiliary Vault 3. Low but alive. Marcus moved faster. Auxiliary Vault 3 was half buried under a fallen ceiling support. 2 rescue drones lifted the beam while Alvarez cut the door. When it finally opened, a thin figure curled inside a maintenance recess and flinched away from the light. She was alien, but close enough in posture for Marcus to understand fear before he understood biology. She had narrow shoulders, long silver-gray hands, and fine dark markings along her temples that pulsed faintly under bruised skin. Her breathing came in short, uneven clicks. Alvarez lowered the med scanner. Female. Conscious. Internal stress. No weapon. Marcus crouched at the edge of the recess, keeping his hands visible. My name is Marcus Hale. I am from Earth. We are here to get survivors out. The alien woman stared at him. Her translator band was cracked, but it still worked after a few seconds of static. Earth? She whispered. Yes. Her eyes moved past him toward the corridor, as if she expected something worse to appear. Do not give me back. Marcus stayed still. Back to whom? Her throat tightened. The Council. Alvarez glanced at Marcus. The woman pressed one shaking hand against the wall behind her. I am not important. I have no rank. I have no claim. Please, if they ask, tell them I died here. Marcus had heard many kinds of fear. Fear of injury. Fear of prison. Fear of public shame. This was different. This was the fear of someone who believed the system already had a place prepared for her, and that place had no door out. What is your name? Marcus asked. Lira Venn. Then listen to me, Lira Venn. You are alive. That means you leave with us. Her eyes filled with disbelief before relief could reach them. The team carried her through the service spine while the station groaned around them. Twice, fire rolled behind sealed doors. Once, a burst of static swept through the comms and erased every local sensor for 5 seconds. Marcus watched Lira flinch each time the lights flickered. She did not ask whether she would survive. She asked only whether the council had arrived. By the time they reached the Resolve, Reed had the medical bay ready. Lira was lifted onto a treatment table. A translator patch replaced her broken band. Marcus stood outside the glass while Earth medics stabilized her. Then the first council transmission struck the ship. It did not come as a request. It came as an order. The holographic seal of the Galactic Council opened above the command table. A tall alien figure appeared inside it, dressed in layered black formal robes with a thin silver band to the throat. His features were smooth and severe, with pale eyes that did not blink often enough. Earth Vessel Resolve, the figure said. This is Advocate Soren Vale of the High Procedural Office. You have removed a person of interest from a restricted incident site. You are ordered to surrender the survivor immediately to council custody. Marcus stepped into the projection range. This is Marcus Hale, Emergency Protection Envoy of Earth. The survivor is under medical care after a civilian rescue. She is not under Earth jurisdiction. She was found alive in a distress zone after no council response arrived. Her classification predates your arrival. Marcus felt the room shift around that sentence. Reed looked up from the navigation console. Marcus kept his voice even. We have not transmitted her identity. Vale's expression did not change. That is irrelevant. It is not irrelevant to me. The survivor is an unprotected testimony asset. She has no diplomatic value, no recognized standing, and no independent evidentiary authority. Holding her will be considered interference. Marcus glanced toward the medical bay window. Lira had turned her face toward the glass. She could not hear every word, but she understood enough. In council language, Vale was saying her words did not count. If he succeeded, she could speak the truth, and the system could still pretend it had heard nothing. If she has no value, Marcus said, why did your office identify her before we did? For the first time, Soren Vale paused. Then he said, Earth is advised not to convert a rescue action into a council dispute. Earth is advising the council not to convert a civilian survivor into missing evidence. The command deck went silent. Vale's pale eyes narrowed. You are refusing a lawful transfer. I am invoking temporary protective custody under Earth rescue law until she is stable, represented, and safe from the authority she says she fears. Her fear has no legal weight. Marcus looked directly at him. It has human weight. The transmission ended without farewell. For a moment, only the ship's systems spoke in soft tones. Reed came to Marcus's side. You know what that just became? The captain said. Marcus watched Lira close her eyes behind the glass, too exhausted to stay awake. Yes, he said. It became the reason they wanted her back. The first public accusation arrived less than 20 minutes later. It was not signed by Soren Vale. It came from the Council Information Service, polished and clean, written in the careful language of institutions that knew how to wound without sounding cruel. The statement said an Earth vessel had unlawfully removed a non-protected witness from the Meridian Archive incident site. It said a human envoy had refused council custody. It said stability concerns were rising. By the next hour, every major interstellar channel had a version of the same story. Earth had seized an alien woman. Earth was using a disaster to gain political leverage. Earth was emotional, young, and dangerous around legal boundaries it did not understand. No report mentioned that Earth had answered a distress call. No report mentioned the council had not. Marcus sat in a small conference room near the medical bay and read the headlines without expression. Mara Klein appeared on a secure Earth channel, her face tight with fatigue. She was director of Earth Border Relief, and she was the closest thing Marcus had to a superior who still spoke like a person. What did you find out there? Mara asked. One survivor, Lira Venn, former archive worker, according to her own statement. Council says she is a testimony asset with no protected value. Council knew her status before I sent her name. Mara absorbed that in silence. That is bad. It is worse than bad. Marcus, they are already tightening inspection on our medical route to Kestrel Belt. 3 cargo ships are being held for compliance review. Marcus looked at the dark reflection in the conference screen. Those ships are carrying fever treatment. Yes. How long can the belt wait? 48 hours before clinics start rationing. Maybe less. He closed his eyes for one breath. The council had moved fast. Not at Meridian. Not to save the archive workers, but to place pressure where it would hurt Earth without looking like retaliation. They were not saying the medicine was being held because of Lira. They were calling it a routine inspection. That was how power made a threat look like paperwork. Mara's voice softened. I'm not telling you to hand her over, but you need me to understand the cost. I need you to understand that other people are about to pay it. That was the cruel part. Marcus could stand pressure. He could take accusations. But council power was rarely aimed at the person who made the decision. It was aimed at everyone around that person until the decision became too expensive to keep. Understand, Marcus said. Do you have more than her fear? Not yet. Then get more. Quickly. Marcus ended the call and went to the medical bay. Lira was awake. The medics had wrapped her side and set a small oxygen bead at her throat. Her eyes tracked Marcus as he entered. You should have given me back, she said. No, you do not know what they can do. I know enough. She looked away. No, you do not. Marcus pulled a chair beside the bed, far enough to give her space. Then tell me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her hands lay open on the blanket, the silver-gray fingers trembling as if they remembered work they hated. I was a phrase clerk, she said. What does that mean? That is the closest translation. I worked in the witness value office. Low tier. No authority. We reviewed reports before. Public release. What kind of reports? Disaster intervention. Resource disputes. Emergency transfers. Witness custody. Marcus did not interrupt. Lira Suvalovit. We did not change facts, they told us. We improved language. We reduced panic. We preserved stability. What did that mean? Her eyes shut. It meant abandoned civilians became non-qualified populations. Forced extraction became resource cooperation. Witness removal became protective transfer. Death by delay became environmental incompatibility. Marcus felt the conference room headlines return in a different shape. Polished words, Clean language, a system that did not deny harm, but renamed it until nobody could hold it. Why would they need you? He asked. Because every change required clerk confirmation, a neural imprint. Not thought, not memory, they said. Only procedural contact. Marcus leaned forward slightly. At Meridian, some copies were stored there. Not the public copies. Older copies. Original copies. Lira opened her eyes. There was a counter record. We were told it was obsolete. How do you know it is not? Because the station alarm used a phrase I had not heard since training. Her mouth tightened. Integrity witness remaining. Marcus stood slowly and called for Alvarez. Within 2 hours, Earth technicians had pulled what they could from the Meridian debris. The data was burned, fragmented, and encrypted under systems older than many council member states. But one phrase repeated across the damaged packets. The damaged files referred to a counter-record core, still active, with a witness imprint required. It was not a public archive. It was a hidden comparison record. It kept older versions of the truth before clean language replaced them. Another line gave the time to thermal lock. 71 hours. Reed stood behind the technicians, arms folded. Thermal lock means permanent. Alvarez nodded. Once the core cools below its recovery threshold, the old memory lattice seals. No interface, no extraction. Marcus looked through the medical bay glass at Lira. Can her imprint open it? If she is the witness imprint, yes. Maybe. But there is another problem. There always is. The core is a neutral archive mechanism. To use evidence from it in a council proceeding, the witness imprint has to be legally valid. If council classifies her as invalid first, anything unlocked through her can be rejected. Reed exhaled through his nose. So they do not have to destroy the evidence. No, Marcus said. They only have to destroy her standing. The second council move arrived before the hour ended. Soren Vale appeared again, this time through a broader public channel. His message was calm, almost gentle. The Galaxy Council recognizes Earth's long tradition of emergency assistance. However, compassion cannot replace procedure. The individual removed from Meridian is not a protected witness. She is a low-level administrative participant in the very records now being questioned. Council custody is the only neutral option. Marcus watched the broadcast with Mara Klein on a secure side feed. He sounds reasonable, Mara said. That is the point. He is offering a transfer to a neutral review panel. Named by whom? The council. Marcus gave her a look. Mara looked tired. I know, but if we accept, he releases the medical ships. He put it in writing. Of course he did. Marcus, clinics in Kestrel Belt are already delaying treatment. And if we hand Lira over, the counter-record core locks in 70 hours. Then every colony named in those records stays buried. Mara's voice sharpened. Do not make this sound easy. Those people in Kestrel are real too. I know they are real. Then give me something I can defend. Marcus turned from the screen toward the medical bay window. Lira sat upright now, listening to Alvarez explain the imprint test. She looked smaller than the argument around her. Council did not only want Lira back. It wanted her declared legally useless before she could open the records. I will get you something, Marcus said. But I am not giving Vale the one person he moved faster to capture than to rescue. Mara held his gaze. Then you need to be right. After she disconnected, Marcus stood alone for several seconds. He had been in rooms like this before. Rooms where the right thing was clear until the cost was named. Rooms where people said larger good when they meant safer choice. Rooms where weak people became numbers and numbers became acceptable. He went back to Lira. She looked at him with the wary steadiness of someone expecting the kind lie. Your director wants me transferred, Lira said. She wants medicine delivered. That is a better reason. It is a painful reason, not a better one. Lira's fingers curled into the blanket. If I go, your ships move. If you go, Vale learns he can hold sick people at the border until Earth surrenders witnesses. She stared at him. You would risk them for me? No. Marcus's voice stayed quiet. I would risk my office, my standing, and maybe Earth's reputation to stop a rule that will hurt them again later. That is not the same as pretending the cost does not exist. Lira looked away. You speak as if rules can be fought. Bad rules have to be fought by people who understand rules. And if I'm not worth it, that phrase is council language. Do not use it for yourself. She made a small sound that was almost a laugh and almost grief. Then she said, "There is a list." Marcus did not move. "What list?" "In the witness value office. We saw fragments only. Transfers. Names. Species. Classifications. Many witnesses were not denied. They were transferred. Protective transfer, the reports said. But after transfer, no further testimony. The redacted transfer list?" Her eyes widened. "You know it. I know the term from a complaint Earth was never allowed to inspect." "It was real," Lira whispered. "I saw parts of it. I signed one record connected to it." "Which record?" Her hands began to tremble harder. "I do not know if I can say." "Because of a loyalty oath?" "Because of shame." Marcus waited. Lira stared at the wall beyond him. A colony called Hollow. Their petition said council delay had trapped civilians during a reactor winter. The public version said the population failed to qualify for intervention due to environmental volatility. I confirmed the language. Marcus kept his face still, but the name struck him. Hollow belonged to the Ver Collective, a small civilization whose delegate had fought for years to reopen. Old disaster reviews. Their public representative was Tovin Seer. "How many died?" Marcus asked. Lyra's voice broke. Enough that the number was removed. That was the first moment Marcus saw her not only as a witness, not only as a survivor, but as someone carrying a piece of the machine inside her. The council had used people like Lira because they were small enough to frighten and close enough to stain. If the truth ever returned, it would return through the hands they had forced to help bury it. Marcus left the medical bay and ordered Alvarez to build a public timeline. Every rescue timestamp, every council order, every delay against the medical ships, every data burst from Meridian. Every moment had to be clean, readable, and impossible to blur. By the next cycle, the pressure doubled. A council channel released a forensic notice claiming Earth rescue drones had modified Meridian data before handing over debris logs. It was careful, technical, and false in the way professional lies were false. It did not invent everything. It placed one wrong conclusion on top of real facts, then waited for frightened people to repeat it. Earth channels filled with angry questions. Some came from hostile governments. Some came from ordinary citizens in the Kestrel Belt, where clinics had begun rationing medicine. Marcus watched one message 3 times. A human nurse stood in a crowded treatment room, her face gray with exhaustion. "I do not know who Lira Venn is," she said. "I'm sure she matters to someone. But I have children here with fevers, and I need to know why a council dispute is sitting between them and the medicine already shipped." Marcus paused the clip before the comment feed could turn cruel. Reed stood near the door. "That one is everywhere." "It should be," Marcus said. "You think so?" "She is telling the truth from where she stands." "And where do we stand?" Marcus looked at the frozen image of the nurse. "Between the person being crushed now and the system that will crush more people later." Reed leaned against the wall. "That is not a place people thank you for standing." "No." The captain was silent a moment. Then he said, "For what it is worth, my crew knows the drone logs are clean. Knowing is not enough." "No, but it is a start." Marcus used that start. Earth released the rescue timeline through an independent humanitarian network instead of an official government channel. That choice mattered. If Earth shouted from its own podium, Soren Vale could call it propaganda. If Earth placed the raw sequence before hospitals, aid monitors, and small colony authorities, the story moved differently. The timeline showed the distress burst from Meridian. It showed no council response in the rescue window. It showed Earth docking. It showed Lira's extraction. It showed the council transfer order arriving before her identity was transmitted. It showed the first medical route inspection hold beginning 9 minutes after Marcus invoked protective custody. It did not prove everything, but it proved enough to change the shape of suspicion. Tovin Seer requested a private channel with Marcus 2 hours later. The Ver delegate appeared from a narrow office filled with old paper files. He was older than Marcus expected, with a voice worn thin by years of being ignored politely. "Envoy Hale," Tovin said. Your witness worked in the office that amended disaster language. Yes. Did she amend records connected to Arvin Hollow? Marcus did not hide behind uncertainty. She believed she confirmed language on at least one record. Tobin's eyes lowered. Believes. She was low level. She saw fragments. Fragments are what we have been given for 12 years. Marcus heard no anger in the words. That made them heavier. I'm not asking you to forgive her, Marcus said. I would not offer forgiveness on behalf of the dead. I'm asking you to watch what the council does next. Tobin looked back up. Why? Because if they succeed in making her legally worthless, they can make every record she opens worthless too. This hearing is not only about whether Lira lives under Earth protection. It is about whether the truth she unlocks is allowed to enter the official record. Tobin's face hardened. They have been doing that to our dead for years. Then help us stop them from doing it one more time. The delegate did not answer. Immediately, at last he said, if she speaks, I will ask her about Arvin Hollow. She should answer, even if it damages your case. Especially then. Tobin studied him for a long moment. That is a human answer. No, Marcus said. It is the only answer that gives the truth a chance. The hours before departure became the kind Marcus hated most. Not dramatic enough to be simple, not quiet enough to think. The Resolve held position near Meridian, while Earth technicians worked inside sealed compartments with fragments pulled from the archive wreckage. Every fragment had to be scanned twice, because one corrupted file could become Vale's excuse to dismiss all of them. Every message to Earth had to be written with the knowledge that Council monitors would read it later and pretend surprise. Marcus made himself move from room to room. In medical, Lira practiced breathing through the translator patch while Alvarez explained what the imprint test might do. It would not read her mind. It would not expose every private memory. It would only match a stored pattern created during her old confirmation work. Alvarez said this gently, but Marcus saw Lira's face when the word confirmation crossed the room. Confirmation was not a technical word to her. It was the sound of a door closing behind people she never met. In engineering, Reed showed Marcus the damaged archive cylinder. The core had not been built like modern council systems. It looked older, heavier, and more stubborn. Its casing had endured the blast because it had been designed by people who expected power to lie someday. Who built it? Marcus asked. Pre-unification archivists, probably, Reed said. Before the council centralized witness categories. Back when record keepers were still paranoid in useful ways. Can it be moved? Carefully. It is stable for travel, but the thermal window is shrinking. If anyone delays us too long at the chamber, it locks before Lira touches it. Vale knows that. Yes. In the communications room, Marcus watched the public argument split into factions. Some human channels praised him too quickly, turning Lira into a symbol before she had chosen to stand. Some alien. Commentators treated Earth as if compassion itself were suspicious. Others asked simpler questions. Why did a relief route get inspected after a witness was protected? Why did council ships fail to answer Meridian? Why did a low-level clerk require a high procedural advocate? Those questions mattered, not because they proved guilt, but because they made the council work harder to look innocent. Mara called again near the final hour before jump. This has reached the Earth Assembly, she said. Marcus rubbed one hand over his face. Of course it has. They want assurance that you can keep the story from becoming anti-council theater. That depends on the council. Marcus, I know. I will keep it evidence-based. Mara studied him through the screen. There is another issue. Several Earth delegates are worried that if Lira's testimony exposes old council failures, Earth will be blamed for destabilizing smaller alliances we rely on. Truth is not destabilization. That is the sentence people say before the consequences arrive. Sometimes consequences are overdue. Mara did not argue. That was what made her difficult. She was not a coward. She was responsible for living supply chains, real clinics, real crews. Marcus respected that enough to let her warning hurt. After the call, he went to the observation blister near the rear of the ship. It was empty except for Lira. She stood with one hand against the glass, watching the remains of Meridian turn slowly in the distance. I worked there once, she said without looking back. Marcus stopped near the hatch. At Meridian? For 3 cycles. Temporary assignment. I was glad when it ended. The archive staff were too careful. They asked questions before accepting amendments. In the office, we were told careful people were inefficient. Did you believe that? I believed whatever made it easier to sleep. Marcus joined her at the glass. The ruined station flashed with emergency beacons, each pulse smaller than the dark around it. When I was younger, he said, I was sent to a mining moon after a pressure collapse. 3 settlement sections were still alive. The company responsible said evacuation was impossible because the survivors were outside profitable recovery range. They did not say it that way, of course. They said resource prioritization. Lira turned slightly. Earth overruled them, Marcus said. Late, but not too late for everyone. I remember one man at the airlock. He kept apologizing because he thought needing rescue made him a burden. What happened to him? He lived. That is why you do this. It is one reason. She looked back at Meridian. I do not know if I deserve to live. Marcus did not answer quickly. Easy comfort would have insulted her. Deserving is not the question before us, he said. Living gives you the chance to answer for what you did and reveal what was done through you. Dead witnesses make very convenient moral lessons. Living ones make records. Lira's reflection trembled in the glass. That sounds harder. It is. Then I will try to be living. That was the closest thing to courage Marcus had heard all day. Before the resolve jumped toward the council seat, Reed gave Marcus one last private update. We found a shadow ping in the debris field, the captain said. Council, not official. It came from a relay drone that left before we arrived. It may have carried confirmation that Lira survived. Marcus took the file. Can we authenticate it? Not fully before the hearing, but it matches the timing of Vale's order. Hold it until we need it. Reed nodded. You expect this to get uglier. Marcus looked toward medical, where Lira was preparing to leave the only ship that had protected her. No, he said. I expect Vale to become polite enough to be dangerous. The hearing summons arrived before the 70-hour mark. The Galaxy Council would convene an emergency procedural review in the central chamber. Earth was ordered to appear. Marcus Hale was named as the responsible envoy. Lira Venn was named not as witness, but as contested custody subject. The wording was deliberate. A witness had a voice. A custody subject was property in dispute. Mara Klein called as soon as the summons hit Earth networks. They're pulling you into the chamber, she said. Good. Do not say good like this is a gift. Vale chose the ground. He chose the ground because he thinks procedure belongs to him. And you think it does not? Marcus looked at the hearing seal on his screen. I think procedure is only dangerous when everyone decent is too afraid to use it. Mara sighed. The medical ships are still held. I know. If this fails, Earth loses the route. If we surrender, the route becomes a leash. She rubbed her brow. I hate that you are probably right. So do I. Her expression softened. Marcus, I need to ask plainly. Is Lira strong enough to testify? No. Mara blinked. Not yet, Marcus said. But she's getting stronger because people have stopped treating her fear as evidence against her. Will that be enough in the chamber? No. The data has to be enough. Her voice makes the data human. Mara nodded slowly. Then make it clean. Make it so clear a dock worker on the night shift can follow it while half asleep. That almost made him smile. That is the plan. The trip to the council seat took less than an hour by jump and felt much longer. Marcus spent the first part reviewing law. He did not read it to find some hidden miracle clause. There rarely was one. He read it to understand the shape of the cage. Witness value classification had been written after a series of false claims centuries earlier, when several rival powers had used manufactured testimony to accuse each other of treaty violations. The original purpose had been reasonable. Not every rumor could demand interstellar intervention. Not every frightened person could trigger a chamber crisis. That was how bad systems survived. They began with a real problem. Then they built a tool. Then the powerful learned which end of the tool was sharp. Under council rules, a witness could be downgraded if the witness lacked direct authority, had participated in the disputed process, or could not provide independent proof. Lira met all three dangers. She had been low-level. She had confirmed amendments. Her proof depended on a core only her imprint could open. Bill would not need to lie much. He only had to arrange true facts in the cruelest order. If Vale made Lira invalid, every record she opened could be dismissed with her. Marcus prepared for that order. He had Alvarez simplify the technical report until it could be understood in one pass. He had Reed isolate the false tamper signal and mark what was known, what was likely, and what could not be proven yet. He had Mara send written confirmation of the medical route holds and their timing. He asked for no rhetorical flourishes from Earth, no dramatic statement, no anthem, no heroic broadcast. Facts first, he told the team. Let the council be the side that needs fog. Lira watched these preparations from a corner table. She had refused a sedative. Alvarez had not pushed. Fear, Marcus thought, sometimes needed to remain awake because it knew things calmness missed. At one point, Lira asked for the list of public charges against Earth. Marcus hesitated, then handed it to her. She read slowly. Her face changed at the line, calling her an administrative participant. That is true, she said. Yes. And compromised. Partly. And self-protective. Also partly. She looked at him. Then how do you defend me? I do not defend you by pretending you are clean. I defend the right of a stained witness to reveal who stained the room. Lira held the tablet close to her chest. In the office, they said humans were dangerous because you personalize law. Marcus almost smiled. We do. They meant it as an insult. It often is. Is it one now? No. Law without persons becomes furniture. It sits in the room while people suffer around it. She seemed to consider that longer than he expected. When the council's seat appeared beyond the forward glass, it did not look like a city. It looked like a decision made visible. Rings of diplomatic platforms circled a central chamber complex. Transit lights moved in clean lanes. No debris, no smoke, no signs of the border colonies whose petitions passed through its halls and died in polite language. The resolve was directed to a lower diplomatic dock. Not the rescue dock. Not the evidence dock. The lower dock. Reed noticed. That is petty. That is theater, Marcus said. They want every arriving delegation to see Earth broad and low. Do we protest? No. We walk. As they left the ship, a corridor of observers. Watched from behind transparent partitions. Some were journalists. Some were aides. Some were delegates who did not want to be seen attending, but wanted to see who looked afraid. Marcus walked at a measured pace. Lira walked beside him, not behind him. That mattered enough that several cameras shifted focus. Halfway through the corridor, an alien reporter called through the partition. Envoy Hale, is Earth prepared to risk relief access for a clerk who admits to altering records? Marcus did not stop walking. Earth is prepared to ask why a clerk was given the power to bury records in the first place. The line moved through the corridor before they reached the chamber doors. The council chamber was not built for humans. It was built to make individuals feel temporary. Tiered platforms curved around a central floor in a vast oval, each level marked by species banners, translation lights, and old treaty seals. The ceiling was dark glass, showing a controlled view of the stars beyond. It gave the impression that the galaxy itself was looking down. Marcus entered through the lower diplomatic gate, with Lira at his side, and Reed 2 steps behind them. Lira wore a simple gray protective garment provided by Earth medical staff. No utility, no council insignia, no attempt to make her look more important than she was. That, Marcus thought, was the strongest choice. She looked exactly like what the council said did not matter. Soren Vale waited on the central floor, calm and immaculate. Behind him sat representatives of the Witness Value Office. Their faces were unreadable in the way institutional faces often were. Not innocent, not guilty, only insulated. The presiding moderator opened the session with formal language. Marcus listened only for the important parts. Earth stood accused of blocking council custody, mishandling contested evidence, keeping a non-protected witness, and endangering relief stability. Soren Vale spoke first. He did not raise his voice. Members of the council, This matter has been distorted by emotional theater. Earth answered a distress call, and for that the Council gives recognition. But after rescue came overreach. Earth removed a low-level administrative participant from an active investigation and now seeks to transform her into a weapon against the very system that must examine her conduct. A murmur moved through the chamber. Vale turned slightly toward Lira, not enough to honor her with full attention. Lira Venn is not a neutral witness. She participated in record amendments. Her testimony is self-protective. Her imprint, if used to open any archive mechanism, would poison the chain of evidence. Earth knows this. Earth proceeds anyway. Lira's face tightened. The words did not strike her like an insult. They struck like a sentence she had already expected. The phrase low-level administrative participant made her look down at her own hands. The words did not only accuse her. They reminded her how easy it had once been to disappear behind clean language. For a second, Marcus saw her almost accept it. He watched the chamber. Vale's argument was effective because it contained pieces of truth. Lira had participated. She was afraid. Her testimony could protect her. The lie was not in those facts. The lie was in the conclusion that fear and guilt made a person useless to truth. Vale continued. If every frightened clerk can become a protected witness by running to Earth, procedure collapses. If procedure collapses, stability collapses. And if stability collapses, no small civilization in this chamber is safe. Marcus saw several small delegation lights flicker. Vale had aimed that sentence well. He was telling the weak that law protected them, even while using law to silence one of them. The moderator turned to Marcus. Earth may respond. Marcus did not begin with outrage. He placed the rescue timeline on the chamber display. This is not a speech about Earth's virtue, he said. It is a sequence of events. The central display showed Meridian's distress burst. At this time, the Meridian archive transmitted a civilian emergency signal. Earth received it. Council Patrol Station 9 received it. Earth diverted a relief ship. Council Patrol Station 9 did not move. The next image showed the resolved docking. Earth entered a damaged civilian archive to search for survivors. We found one. Her name is Lira Venn. He showed the timestamp of the council order. This transfer order arrived before Earth transmitted her name, species, employment history, or medical condition. The chamber shifted again, quieter this time. Marcus turned to Vale. Advocate Vale says this matter became dangerous because Earth made a witness important. The record shows the council treated her as important before Earth knew who she was. Vale's eyes stayed cold. The council had prior classifications. Then let us examine them. That is not the subject of this hearing. It is the heart of this hearing. The moderator lifted one hand. Envoy Hale, remain within the charge. I am within it. Earth is accused of obstructing lawful custody. We are showing that the custody demand was not neutral. It was issued by an office with a direct interest in preventing the witness from opening the counter-record core. The name moved through the chamber like a current through water. Some delegates had not heard it. Others had heard it and hoped never to hear it spoken publicly. Marcus added one sentence because the chamber needed it, and so did every listener beyond it. The counter-record core is a comparison archive. It can show whether official records were cleaned after the original reports were written. Vale's voice sharpened for the first time. The counter-record mechanism is an obsolete archival safeguard with no verified relevance. Then why does it have active thermal lock protocols? Marcus displayed the damaged Meridian packet. The chamber screen showed that the counter-record core was active and required a witness imprint. He did not explain too much. He let the meaning remain simple. The core existed. It needed Lira, and Vale wanted Lira declared invalid before she could touch it. Lira stood very still beside him. The moderator turned to Vale. Does the High Procedural Office dispute the packet? The packet is incomplete. That is not an answer, Marcus said. Vale looked at him. Earth has no standing to compel classified archive interpretation. Earth has standing because Earth pulled the last living imprint from the wreckage while the Council was already preparing to take her. A low sound spread across the chamber. Not approval. Not yet. Recognition. Vale changed direction. Very well. Let us speak of the witness. Lira Venn, did you or did you not confirm amendments to disaster reports? Lira's hands tightened. Marcus did not step in front of her. He had promised to stand beside her, not speak over her. Lira's translator caught her first breath and made it sound fragile. Yes. The chamber stilled. Vale presid. Did you confirm language that altered the interpretation of civilian losses? Yes. Did you confirm language and records connected to Arvin Hollow? Lira turned her head toward Tovin Sear's delegation platform. The old Vare delegate sat motionless. The name struck her harder than Vale's accusation. It carried faces she had never seen, and a number she had helped remove. Her shoulders bent slightly, as if the whole chamber had leaned its weight onto her. Yes, Lira said. A sharper murmur rose. Vale's tone softened, almost kind. So you admit you helped create the very records Earth now claims are corrupt. Lira closed her eyes once. When she opened them, something had changed. Not confidence, not peace, but a decision. I admit I was afraid, she said. I admit you obeyed. I admit I told myself words were not bodies. I was wrong. Vale held the silence for a heartbeat, then turned to the chamber. You have heard it. This is not a witness. This is a participant seeking absolution. Marcus stepped forward. That is precisely why she matters. The chamber lights shifted toward him. Marcus continued. The Witness Value Office used low-level staff to confirm altered records. Then, when those staff became inconvenient, it used their involvement to declare them contaminated. That means they could say no one inside the system was clean enough to testify against it. That is not protecting evidence. That is a trap. Vale's expression hardened. Rhetoric. Timeline, Marcus said. He brought up the second sequence. The medical relief holds began 9 minutes after Earth invoked protective custody. The accusation of drone tampering was drafted before the Council received our full debris logs. The neutral panel offered to receive. Lira includes 3 offices that report to Advocate Vale's procedural chain. And the Witness Value Office flagged Lira Venn before the public knew she survived. Each item appeared, one after another, without decoration. Marcus knew the real fight was not over custody anymore. If Vale made Lira invalid, every record she opened could be dismissed with her. Marcus faced the chamber. If she is worthless, why did the most powerful institution in the galaxy move faster to silence her than to rescue the dead? No one spoke. The moderator's face was difficult to read. Advocaci Vale. Vale did not answer Marcus directly. He turned to fear. If Earth is permitted to proceed, any species can seize archive fragments, elevate compromised personnel, and destabilize decades of settled records. Think carefully. Some of you have old conflicts, old claims, old grief. Do you truly want every sealed file reopened because one human envoy distrusts procedure? That was the strongest argument he had made. Marcus knew it because the chamber received it with dread. Old records were dangerous. Not only to the guilty, to everyone who had survived by accepting imperfect peace. Tovin Sear rose slowly on his platform. My people accepted imperfect peace, he said. The chamber turned toward him. Tovin's voice was thin, but it carried. We were told Arvin Hollow was reviewed. We were told the dead were ineligible for intervention. We were told our petition lacked standing because the record was settled. For 12 years, the Council advised patience. Patience is what powerful institutions ask of the buried. Vale's face remained still, but the tendons at his jaw tightened. Tovin looked at Lira. I do not forgive you. Lira bowed her head. Her shoulders shook once, but she did not hide her face. I know, she whispered, but I would hear what you helped bury. Lira looked up slowly. She did not look like someone being rescued anymore. She looked like someone finally being asked to answer for what she had survived. The chamber shifted again. This time, it did not shift back. The moderator called a recess to consider whether Lira could be recognized as a protected witness for the limited purpose of testing the counter-record core. It was a narrow question, but everyone understood the wider one. If she was recognized, even temporarily, the Council could lose control of the records. During the recess, Marcus took Lira to a side room watched by 2 Earth security officers and 4 Council monitors. The room had transparent walls, a polished table, and no softness anywhere. Lira sat with her hands folded. I thought Tovenseer would curse me, she said. He may still. He should. Marcus stood near the door. Maybe, but he asked to hear you. I do not know if that is mercy. It is not mercy. It is discipline. She looked up. Mercy is personal, Marcus said. Truth is work. Lira absorbed that. You make it sound possible. It is possible. That does not mean it is clean. On the other side of the glass, Soren Vale spoke with two council officers. He did not look angry now. He looked focused. Marcus knew that look. A man like Vale did not need victory to be honorable. He needed procedure to protect him from ever having to call defeat by its name. Reed entered with an update on a secure slate. The Kestrel ships are still held, he said quietly. But humanitarian monitors are asking why. That pressure is spreading. Marcus nodded. Good. Also, Alvarez finished the tamper analysis. The false modification signal did not come from our drones. Source. Reed handed him the slate. Council inspection relay. Marcus read the result twice. Can we prove in the chamber? Clean enough for public review. Lira saw his face. What happened? Marcus looked at her. They try to make Earth look like it forged evidence. We can now show the false trail came through a council relay. Her voice went flat with surprise. They would accuse you of their own alteration. That is usually how practiced systems lie. The recess ended with a ruling that sounded like compromise, which meant no one was happy. Lira Venn would be granted conditional protected witness status for one purpose only. The counter-record core could be opened under public chamber supervision. Earth would assume responsibility for any false or corrupted evidence presented through her imprint. If the evidence failed, Earth's access to relief routes could be suspended pending review. Mara Klein sent one message. Do it clean. Marcus placed the slate down and looked at Lira. You can still refuse, he said. She looked toward the chamber doors. If I refuse, what happens? The core locks. Vale survives the day. The council says procedure worked. The medical ships probably move. Some people thank Earth for being reasonable. And the names. Marcus did not soften it. They stay buried. Lira nodded once. Then I will not refuse. The counter-record core had been brought from Meridian inside a sealed archive cylinder. It rested now on a raised platform in the center of the council chamber. It was smaller than Marcus expected. A dark metal oval, scarred by heat, with a thin seam of blue-white light pulsing under its surface. Around it stood council technical officers, Earth observers, neutromonitors, and enough recording systems to make denial difficult. Soren Vale addressed the chamber one last time before the test. Let every delegation understand what Earth requests. They ask us to trust a compromised clerk, a damaged archive fragment, and a rescue power with political incentive to embarrass this council. If this chamber permits such a precedent, no record is safe from emotional revision. Marcus stepped to the opposite side of the core. No, he said. We asked the chamber to test whether the official record was already revised by power. If the record is clean, it will stand. If it is not, the danger is not Lira Venn. The danger is the system that needed her silence. The moderator signaled the start. Lira walked to the core. The chamber's vastness seemed to press toward her. Her steps were slow, not theatrical, not brave in the clean way stories like to make bravery. Her shoulders shook. Once she stopped and closed her eyes. Marcus did not touch her. He only stood where she could see him when she opened them. You do not have to be fearless, he said quietly. Her translator carried the words farther than he intended. Many heard them. Lira placed her palm on the core. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the blue-white seam widened. A sound moved. Through the chamber, low and layered, like thousands of pages being turned underwater. Light climbed the platform in thin lines. Lira's fingers trembled against the metal, but she did not pull away. Data opened above the core in columns. At first the symbols were raw. Then the translation systems caught them. 2 versions of the same record appeared. One was the public report. One was the counter-record. The first concerned Arvin Hollow. The public report said the population failed to qualify for intervention because of environmental volatility and unstable local infrastructure. The counter-record said civilian shelters had requested evacuation 3 times. It said intervention was delayed to protect the liability position of senior council members. It said survivors exceeded the available political value threshold. It said reclassification was approved. No one moved. Tovin Sear gripped the edge of his platform. Lira saw his hands tighten. Her face folded with pain, but she kept her palm on the core. The next record opened. The public report called it a resource cooperation agreement completed under emergency conditions. The counter-record called it labor extraction authorized after food access was restricted. It said local consent was invalid under survival pressure. It said the objection was removed from the final summary. Then another. The public report called it a protective transfer completed for witness safety. The counter-record said the witness had been removed from open review after a classification downgrade. It said the final location was restricted. It said the testimony was never recorded. Another record opened. The public report called the deaths environmental incompatibility. The counter-record said relief filters had been withheld during a jurisdiction dispute. It said the delay was approved to avoid setting a precedent of intervention obligation. The chamber did not erupt. That would have been easier. Instead, it went terribly quiet because every delegation understood what it was seeing. Not one crime, not one mistake, a method. Lira's hand remained on the core. Tears moved down her face, but her voice did not collapse when she spoke. I confirmed some of these changes. I told myself I did not choose who lived. I only touched language after choices were made. But language was where they hid the choices. The core pulsed again. A locked section opened under a title that made even Vale turn his head. The redacted transfer list. It was a list of witnesses who had been transferred, downgraded, or removed from public record after they became inconvenient. Names filled the air. Hundreds, then thousands. Witnesses classified as low value. Witnesses transferred for protection. Witnesses removed from public review. Witnesses whose testimony had never reached any chamber. Some names had species markers. Some had colony affiliations. Some had only numbers because the original identities had been stripped. Lira stared at the names as if they were stepping out of the dark one by one. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. For the first time, she was not only afraid of what the council might do to her. She was afraid of how many people had already vanished through the words she once helped approve. Tovin Sear stood. Then another small delegation stood. Then another. One by one, platforms lit across the chamber as minor worlds, border colonies, and dependent civilizations requested emergency review. The lights spread unevenly, like sparks finding dry ground. Soren Vale spoke over the rising sound. These files lack context. Marcus looked at him across the core, then opened the context. Vale's mouth tightened. Seal the display pending authentication. He ordered the technical officers. No one moved. The moderator turned slowly toward him. Advocate Vale, under conflict of interest rules, the High Procedural Office cannot order the sealing of evidence that implicates its own classification process. Vale's eyes flashed. This chamber is allowing panic to override structure. No, Marcus said. Structure is finally being applied upward. The moderator conferred with the neutral monitors. The decision came in formal language, but its meaning was simple. The Witness Value Office will be frozen pending public review. All emergency downgrades issued by that office in connection with Meridian, Lira Venn, and the redacted transfer list would be suspended. The medical holds on Earth relief shipments would be lifted and placed under independent monitoring. Vale stood in the center of the chamber, still robed, still composed, but suddenly smaller. Not defeated by Earth force. Not even defeated by Marcus. Defeated by the one thing he had believed belonged to him alone. Procedure. Lira removed her hand from the core. The display remained. The dead did not return. The missing did not walk back into the chamber. Arvin Hollow did not become whole because the right words had finally been spoken. Marcus knew better than to call that justice. But it was the first crack in the wall that had kept justice out. That was the moment Marcus saw the story leave his hands. He had not wanted theater, But public truth always became more than evidence once people recognized themselves inside it. The Kestrel nurse recognized the cost of delay. Tovin Seer recognized the language that had covered his dead. Border colonies recognized inspection holds used like chains. Even some larger delegations recognized a danger they had ignored because it had not yet turned toward them. Soren Vale understood it too. For the first time since Marcus had seen him, Vale looked not angry, not afraid, but personally offended. He had not expected to be hated. Men like Vale rarely did. They mistook the calmness of people beneath them for consent. The moderator ordered the redacted transfer list sealed for duplication under neutral supervision, not for concealment. That distinction mattered. It meant the list would not vanish into one office again. Copies would go to independent archives, Earth monitors, and petitioning delegations with related claims. Vali objected. Unreviewed names cannot be released across political channels. This will create unrest. Tovin Seer answered before Marcus could. Unrest is what the living feel when the dead are finally counted. A few delegations struck their desk lights in support. It was not applause. The council did not allow applause in emergency procedure, but the sound carried the same meaning. Marcus looked at Lira. She had heard it too. She was crying openly now, but she did not remove her hand until the neutral monitor told her the transfer was complete. Only then did she step back. Her knees nearly failed. Marcus caught her elbow, briefly, enough to steady her, but not enough to claim the moment. The chamber saw that too. A human envoy supporting a witness who had just helped expose her own guilt. Not rescue without accountability. Not forgiveness without truth. Something harder. Something Earth had learned through its own ugly histories and was still learning badly, unevenly, stubbornly. Vale tried one final motion to suspend Earth from relief coordination pending investigation. The moderator reviewed the motion in silence. Then she rejected it. Relief access cannot be suspended by an office currently under conflict review, she said. Existing holds on Earth medical shipments are lifted pending independent audit. Marcus did not show relief. Not there, but inside him and not loosened. The medical route had survived. Not untouched. Not without fear. But not as a leash. After the ruling, the chamber dissolved into controlled disorder. Delegates demanded copies, reviews, emergency sessions, and private consultations. Council officers tried to slow the flood and failed. The story had already moved beyond the chamber. Outside, public channels began replaying the records with simple captions. The council had called them non-qualified. The original files called them abandoned. Earth relief ships cleared inspection within the hour. In Kestrel Belt, clinics received notice that medicine was moving again. Marcus watched the confirmation on Reed's slate and let himself breathe for the first time in what felt like days. Mara Klein appeared on the secure channel. She looked exhausted, but the tightness in her face had shifted. The ships are moving, she said. I saw. You nearly cost us the route. Yes. You also kept it from becoming a leash. Marcus did not answer. Mara's voice lowered. The nurse from Kestrel sent another message. She said the medicine is enough for now. She also said she heard the Arvin Hollow record. Good. She said she understands why you did not trade Lira. Marcus looked toward the chamber floor, where Lira stood with Tovin Seer. They were not embracing. They were not healed. Tovin was speaking, and Lira was listening with her head bowed. It looked harder than forgiveness. It looked like the beginning of accountability. Understanding came late. Marcus said, late is better than never. After the chamber closed, Marcus found Lira in a side corridor overlooking the diplomatic docks. Ships from 100 worlds moved beyond the glass, each carrying its own version of fear, pride, and memory. Lira did not turn when he approached. I thought I would feel free, she said. You opened a door. That is not always the same thing. They will hate me. Some will. I helped them. Marcus stood beside her. Yes. She closed her eyes. You are not supposed to say that. I will not buy your peace with a lie. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she nodded. Tovin Seer asked me to testify again when Arvin Hollow is reviewed. Will you? Yes. Good. She looked at him then. Why did Earth do this? Truly? I'm not human. I had no treaty with you. I cannot help your colonies. I could not repay what you risked. Marcus watched a relief ship detach from the dock and turn toward open space. Because if protection only belongs to people who can repay it, it is not protection. It is a transaction. Lira absorbed the answer slowly. The council said I was not worth protecting. I know. That was how I knew the others had not been protected either. Marcus said nothing because there was nothing to improve in that. The next day, the Galaxy Council issued a carefully worded statement. It did not apologize. Institutions rarely began with apology. It announced a temporary review of witness classification protocols, a suspension of certain transfer authorities, and a public audit of Meridian-related records. It praised stability. It praised cooperation. It mentioned Earth only once. That was enough. Across the border regions, smaller civilizations began filing old petitions again. Not with hope exactly. Hope was too delicate for people who had been denied for years. They filed with evidence, with witnesses, and with the knowledge that a chamber had once been forced to listen. The redacted transfer list remained under guard, but not under silence. Soren Vale was not removed that day. Powerful systems did not collapse because one witness told the truth. They shifted, defended themselves, renamed their failures, and looked for new walls. Marcus knew that too, but he also knew what had changed. Before Lira Venn, the council could look at a person with no rank, no power, no diplomatic value, and declare that person too small to matter. After Lira Venn, the galaxy had seen what could be hidden inside someone called small. When Marcus returned to the Resolve, Captain Reed was waiting near the cargo bay. The medical crates were gone, transferred back to the relief route. The bay looked empty without them. New orders? Reed asked. Earth wants a full report. That will be fun. No, it will be long. Reed smiled faintly. Council filed a protest against your chamber conduct. Only one. 3. One of them says you weaponized moral language. Marcus walked past the empty crate rails. Did they define moral language? No. Then I suppose they will need a review. Reed laughed once, quiet and tired. Marcus stopped at the cargo bay door and looked back at the space where the medicine had been. He thought of the Kestrel nurse, of Arvin Hollow, of Lyra's hand shaking on the core, of the thousands of names that had filled the air while the council chamber forgot how to breathe. Earth had not won cleanly. It had not won cheaply. It had not saved everyone, but it had refused the trade that powerful systems always offered. Peace in exchange for silence. Order in exchange for one abandoned person. Relief in exchange for surrendering the witness who could prove why relief had been denied to others. The galaxy would argue about what Earth had done. Some would call it reckless. Some would call it arrogant. Some would call it dangerous that humans attached so much weight to a single frightened voice. Marcus could live with that, because somewhere in the official record, where clean language had once buried dirty choices, a new line now had to remain. Earth was ordered to abandon one alien witness. Earth refused, and because it refused, the galaxy heard the dead speak through the words that had been stolen from them. Earth did not protect Lira Venn because she was powerful. Earth protected her because she was alone. A life does not need political value to deserve protection. A voice does not need permission to tell the truth. Marcus Hale did not win by commanding fleets or breaking worlds. He won by refusing to let truth be buried under clean words, sealed records, and polite procedures. And sometimes, the smallest witness can make the largest empire answer for what it tried to hide. If this story stayed with you, please leave a like, share it with someone who loves powerful science fiction, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about humanity standing tall in a galaxy that keeps underestimating what we are willing to defend. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next story.